Hey everyone, welcome to Geek Rant. It's Greg here again on the channel with Toby, and today we're going to be looking at the 1979 classic Alien.
Some of you may have figured out we're not home yet. We're only halfway there. Mother's intercepted a transmission of unknown origin. You got us up to check it out.
Human.
Unknown.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today. We're talking about one of our favourite films. As sci-fi fans, this is one of the definitive films ever made. I feel a masterpiece. Really, I think it's one of those ones that you can actually say is a bit of a masterpiece.
Yeah, and we're going to try and explain why we feel it is a masterpiece. I think you have to initially put it into context as to where this film kind of sits. In the big blockbusters that were the sci-fi films that had started to come.
I mean, there weren't that many. There weren't that many before it, were there?
No, there weren't. We had the Star Wars franchise began. In 2 years before.
2
years before. But it's interesting because Alien was probably in production before that film came out. As a concept.
It was actually, funny enough, Star Wars was something that helped it get to be made. It had been put forward as a script, and they had sort of said, we're not interested at the moment. Then they produced Star Wars, and obviously that was a massive success. And that they were then sort of saying to themselves, right, what can we do else that's going to be in a sci-fi now that this is going to become a genre that everyone wants? And it was one of the scripts that was there that they had, so they developed it and took it forward. It's interesting because I was watching a few other bits about this and sort of having a look into it. The writer, a guy called O'Bannon, he was actually starting to sort of work on Dune, which was a production that didn't go ahead. It wasn't the one that was made. And that was where he saw the artwork from H.R. Giger. And so that kind of the whole Alien thing was in his mind. He'd worked on another film previously, which was a really B movie type film. And
it's interesting because Giger is he's a surrealist artist in a way. I mean, not from the original surrealist movement, but his work is fantastical. It's very alien anyway, and there's quite a lot of body horror that he was drawing, and the kind of the books he was working on were very kind of extreme, quite sexual. And some of his early work, and he's quite sort of a reclusive, unusual character. And
I think also it to me it was always looked very both organic and mechanical. And it really fused those together and made something completely different, didn't it?
And something that we look over now because we recognize the images so much, but it's quite erotic in a way. Some of the
it is a bit,
the way
it is.
It's the puncturing, the things that extend outwards, the tubes, the kind of curves, the
body shapes. You see the sort of female body shape and the female faces, and it's scary but sexy, and it's kind of a bit weird.
It is a bit weird. I mean, that's the context that we have Alien coming out of. So you've always got to bear that in mind, that we're coming into something that is very visceral and kind of, as you say, organic, but kind of like there's all sorts of sticky textures going on and all this type of stuff. We've been sucked into an organ, if you like, when you went through this, what we're going to experience. And we have no idea this is going to happen because no one's seen stuff like this before. And it's very kind of niche artwork. So already they've got this proposition of this style they're going to drag into the film.
No, absolutely. And I know that when Ridley Scott was then brought in as well, they had a lot of respect for him. He'd done a film called The Duelist beforehand, and they thought that was a real good film, and so they actually increased the budget. They doubled the budget from about 4 million to about 8 million, and so it gave them a bit more ability, and I think that helped to get some of the actors on board. Tom Skerritt was a bit reluctant because he thought it could just be a B movie. It's very simple, isn't it, in principle, what the storyline is. They are a group, there's 7 crew members who, again, they're all like just regular kind of people. I think this is one of the real strengths of this film. You really get a sense of all the different characters and the kind of, they seem so naturally like people would be, and within that environment.
Exactly. And that reminds me, when I was watching it, I felt it was almost like a documentary. As if there's a camera watching this crew have this experience, and the camera crew is documenting what's happening, rather than being necessarily too involved with the characters.
Things like the bits where they're arguing over the bonuses and things like that. To me, that really made me feel like I was at work. I got a lot of work people who are a bit like that. Oh yeah, but what about the money? What about the extra time for that and the money and all this sort of thing? And you're like, bloody hell, this is. And that's what's different. That, to me, is one of the big differences to a lot of science fiction stuff. They don't really reflect on that a lot.
It's genius.
They are just regular people that have been thrust into this scenario, haven't they? So obviously, these 7 crew members are on a huge. It's a massive ship, isn't it? The Nostromo. And
Nostromo,
they're sort of. Is it a mining ship? I can't even remember if it's a mining ship or if it's a transport ship or something. It's basically. It's heading back to Earth, isn't it?
It is.
And the company that own it have heard a distress call. I think it's a signal from a planet. And they've diverted their ship to this planet. So when they all wake up, they're like, where are we? I loved all that bit.
I think that is an important sequence, isn't it? Before they wake up, because we get taken through the ship.
Yes.
And at this point, I think we begin to understand that the ship is a character in this as well.
Yes.
Because what we see is the computer talking, and it's these very visceral, old-fashioned noises. They sound like typewriters. The way old Commodore 64s used to sound when you type on.
I love it.
And
all the
like
sound effects are so good.
They're very hard and very visceral. And then we get this projection from the screen onto the helmet.
A helmet, yes.
And it's almost as if the computer is alive. This helmet is almost like the pilot to a certain extent.
Where they put it. Yeah, it does.
Yeah, the way, and because it's moving and the lights, it's so smart how you're suddenly drawn into this environment, and it pans around the spaceship, sort of almost hauntingly around the spaceship.
Yes. That's that whole feeling, isn't it, of moving around the spaceship when a lot is happening. They're just seeing the lie of the land, and what was quite, I think, also because I've seen a few making of. What's quite interesting, they actually made a huge all-in-one set that was all linked together,
and you feel
they actually felt like they were on a ship. They were in this confined space and helped to create that atmosphere. But you're totally right. That whole beginning bit, it's a good few minutes long, isn't it?
It's classic,
You pan around, you see the computer starting to come on, and then you pan back, don't you? And you sort of look at where their bay is, their bay door opens, and I like all there's a bit of, change in pressure, and you see the lights coming on and them waking up, and they're
being born into this world. They are, in a sense, coming out of eggs themselves as these things open. It is very much about its mother. Because the ship's called Mother, and it's giving birth to these characters into this terrible situation where there's another mother who's going to be protecting, not necessarily not the mother alien, but it's a kind of like, it's got its eggs, isn't it? It's going to have eggs at some point, and
But at that point, I'm sort of listening to the music and the little sounds and things that you were saying there. It really adds so much to it, doesn't it? And gives this suspense and the feeling. And
we can look back to I think it's 1969 when 2001 came out, and they had that classic score that we know, and then we go to Star Wars, and you've got all the action music that Williams brought us, which was just fabulous. And Aliens is sort of in between, I think. It's got very much a sense, and I think we kind of realize, because of the light, the darkness of the spaceship and what's potentially ahead, that this actually isn't just sci-fi, but it's horror as well.
Yes, exactly. It's set in a sci-fi scenario, isn't it? But it's a real horror film, isn't it? And okay, so we obviously see they'll wake up, they will realize they're not where they're supposed to be. Dallas, the captain, goes in and he sees Mother, doesn't he? Which is great. It's a great room. It's a great little area, that, isn't it? And
it's like an egg.
It's kind of white and enclosing with all these little lights, and he sort of talks to the computer, doesn't he? He types a few things in, and it says there's a signal, and he comes back and tells them all, right, there's a signal down on this planet. And that's, like the bonus thing, and the discussion about, this is not part of my job, I'm not supposed to be, and all that sort of thing. I really like all that sort of thing. It's so natural, it's so real. And
it's funny because all the walls are padded, aren't they? Yeah. And it's like they're in a madhouse. It's like there's something about the padded walls makes it. Oh, I mean, it's a spaceship. You might bang around potentially, but you think, oh, what other sort of connotations is this kind of leading towards? Yeah.
And you get a real feel for the different characters, don't you? You see, because they're sitting around, they're having a meal and they're talking, and they've all got their little mannerisms. The two sort of the guys that work in the engine room, Brett and Parker. They're really sort of stuck. They're together, aren't they? They're feeling they're hard done by. When you see them walking down in the sort of and all the little comments and stuff. Ripley rings him and he's like, what the fuck does she want? It's all that sort of thing, it really builds the character set for me.
Well, and Lambert, Veronica Cartwright, her voice is a constant siren, isn't it, throughout the first half of the film. She's kind of like a screechy kind of tone. And I can't help but feel that she's kind of directed by Ridley Scott to make those noises, to be visceral, to kind of go high pitched, and she uses it from the beginning, and it kind of plays it. But of course, we got the two consummate actors, Ripley, Sigourney Weaver, and Ian Holm. Ian Holm in this, he is just brilliant. Mind-blowing, his performance.
I mean, for me, I actually find him a bit more scary than the alien.
Totally.
That whole bit.
Well, when I first saw this, he scared the shit out of me. That did. Yeah.
So
anyway,
obviously they'll meet the crew. They head down to the planet and discover this amazing looking ship, which is all this Geiger drawing. All the inside is all this amazing.
Well, they use
organic,
a number of
technological sort of. It's really fascinating.
They use a number of techniques here to make this feel otherworldly and kind of alien. So they use scale firstly. Well, no, actually, the first thing they use is kind of live footage from their cameras, which that was very new at the time, doing that type of thing. So you see this kind of broken imagery of what looks like the ship, and then as they go in, the fuzz, and it creates this atmosphere, and then you're blown away by the scale. And they've got these huge paintings, and just they've matted in these little characters into these scenes. That's right. And they look so good. It just it stands up now. And I watched it this morning, and I was like, wow, that is amazing.
It's fabulous. They made big sets, didn't they? They had, and you find that there's an alien sitting in a seat,
the elephant alien or something. What are they?
Space.
Thrown out of the seat.
Jockey,
isn't he? Space jockey. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
He kind of looks like a. He's got a long sort of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, when you see later alien films, they actually show that. It's actually a mask that opens up, and that the guy gets in it, and it kind of closes in on him. And I wasn't as keen on that.
The reality of
that was what the alien looked like.
The reality is we're in H.R. Geiger's imagination here.
Yes.
There would never be a spaceship with a massive chasm like that inside it, would there? I mean, let's face it. I mean, it's a surreal, fantastical world that we're heading into here.
It made no sense, did it?
It doesn't make any sense, but it's
No.
bloody amazing, and
Yeah.
it looks fantastic, and it feels like it's alive. That's the thing. It's organic.
Yeah. And they obviously then find they see this body, and that something's exploded from inside. You know, they say, it's come from in the inside. You know, they see a hole in the floor where there's something burnt through the floor, and
so what do you do? You naturally go down there, don't you?
Yeah.
Sure.
Let's get down there and see what is going on. So they get down there, and old John Hurt's character falls down one bit, doesn't he? And then he looks up, because he's been looking at this big cavernous, you know, like you say again. When you see the shape of the ship, actually, you sort of think it's sort of but there's this massive cavernous room where all this mist is, and he's like playing around with the mist, and he falls down, and then he sees this thing, doesn't he, like a big egg.
Yeah, the egg. With these lips on top.
This was some of the best stuff for me, because it's so the egg and that was so real looking, wasn't it? Where you see it, like the insides of it, and that thing's starting to move about, and he's like, oh, something's alive in there, and you know,
he shines a light through it, doesn't he?
Yeah,
you get that nice perspective. And I think one thing that this really emphasizes to me is a lot of films these days forget that chemicals and mess and gunk and stuff like that, they look fantastic on film, you know, and it's a bit of a pain to have to use all that stuff, but surely it's much cheaper, but looks great, and textures and the colors, you know, you put it on screen, it looks fabulous, if you ask me.
I know. I totally agree. It's some of the best. You know, when you look at the creature sort of effects and stuff, some of this is amazing, isn't it? When they're dissecting it later on, you know, that looks amazing. Just the insides of it, how they've done all that with whatever they've used.
They actually used they used fish and clams and stuff like that inside that. Yeah. They cut them up
together though. Really really clever.
Yeah,
looks so good, you know. And obviously he gets this thing comes out of the pod and smashes through his glass. Brilliant. But then we get to that moment, you know, then they get back to the ship, they're trying to get in, and Dallas is saying, come on, let us in, and Ripley's, well, hang on, we got a quarantine for 24 hours. And then this is where you start to see the darker side of Ian Holm's character, Ash. He lets them in, doesn't he? And you sort of think, why?
He does. He overrides Ripley. He overrides her because she says no. And Ian Holm, he has the line to Mother, and he knows what the mission is.
Yes,
you know,
he's been given some special orders, hasn't he?
I think so. We never actually told that, but I think that's.
I think this for me, this was for me the bit where I think perhaps he hadn't known that until they'd brought it in and he'd looked at it first. Do you know what I mean? Because there's a bit of time there.
He gets subbed into the ship. The original medic or whoever was going to, he gets taken off, and then 2 days before it launched, he gets put on. So
that's true. That is very true.
So I'm wondering whether there was some kind of maybe original signal, maybe I don't know. It's a bit of a theory there, but you know, it strikes me that he kind of knows.
Yeah, it's interesting that, isn't it? Because I'm trying to sort of work out how did they know this? Did they know it was an alien ship? Did they know? You know, but anyway,
you don't need to know, but
it's a minor thing.
It's fine,
but it's
fine.
Just one to speculate, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So they come in, they take all these helmet, and again, you know, just simple things like when they're taking the helmet off, you're looking at the way it's in there and on his face, and they take it off, and there it is, and it looks so good, it looks so real, you know.
It does.
I think this for me was the scary bit about it, that it looks so real and it could be a thing. Do you know what I mean? Some of these monsters you see and stuff look really ridiculous, but this feels like it's got a bit of thought behind it. Yeah, you know what I mean?
Good design.
Brilliant. And obviously they realize they can't take it off because they cut it and it's got acid for blood and that would kill him. And so they kind of, this for me was a bit where I sort of think, because the Parker keeps saying to them, are they going to freeze it? Are they going to freeze it?
They don't respond to him, do they?
Why didn't they freeze? This is what I was sort of thinking, why didn't they freeze it? You know, when they knew they couldn't get it off, why didn't they just whack him in a pot?
Ash is pushing it forward and ignoring him.
Exactly.
And Dallas kind of doesn't hear him anyway, because he often is just making decisions without much input, isn't he?
Yeah.
But I think that I think Ash carefully guides it to this process.
He does. And they allow it to see where it goes, don't they? And it falls off. And we think, okay, John Hurt sits back up, seems okay. Again, surely they would have scanned his body and checked his body for a fucking thing inside him. But
I'm thinking Ash knew that it was in the body.
There is a bit where you see him. He's looking at some data when he's just lying there.
Yeah.
And Sigourney Weaver comes in and has a bit of a go at him, doesn't she? For letting in the people. That's not exactly standard protocol, is it, for a science officer?
He clicks the screen off, doesn't he?
He doesn't. He turns the screen off because
he knows that there's something inside, and he doesn't want to say, because Sigourney Weaver tries to get information out of him, and and asks him, and he talks about the skin and how it can survive in adverse conditions, but he doesn't really say, oh, there's an alien inside his body and he's going to pop out this afternoon, but I think he's kind of aware that something's going to happen, and you can say when he's sitting at the table when he's watching it happen that he's kind of observing as if this is going to happen.
And then you have that moment, don't we? One of the most famous
scene.
Moments, John Hurt, they all sitting around again, eating food, and he suddenly convulses, doesn't he? And again, it's not so much the actual act of these things; it's the sort of the way the sounds that are made. He's groaning, and John Hurt's.
Oh, he's brilliant.
He's doing all these funny noises and stuff.
They're all holding him down. It's very physical, and the camera's in there like you're in A&E, isn't it? And it's kind of trying to get in to this happening, and it changes, and it's like it is like, again, that documentary scene. Someone's trying to see what's going on in this situation, and of course there's the classic, because Lambert, the actress who plays her, she apparently didn't know the extent of what was going to happen.
Yeah, she knew something was going to come out, but they put all this high pressure blood stuff in there, you see.
Yeah.
And one of them fired and hit her in the face.
Yeah, and she gets that scream.
She slips over because it's all on the floor and goes into a bit of a hysterical fit, doesn't she? And they're all surprised because, again, they hadn't said anything about all this blood shooting out and stuff, And so it their reactions are probably more real than you think. It's like and
there's that moment where what's his name, Parker, is gonna stab it. And
but again, Ash says, no, leave it.
Yes,
don't touch it. And
off it goes across the table. In that kind of, it's one of the few things you can slightly question about this.
That's funny. I was going to say that.
Were you?
The way it goes across the table. That one little tiny bit
real.
Just doesn't look right, does it?
No,
and I'm like, well, I can't critique it for it's such a good film.
I think that's the only. But
watching
it, and they would just stand there staring at him, and you can see it's like that's their real look as actors. This is beyond their characters. This is the actual actors going. Jesus.
They're then off, aren't they, looking around for this alien, and they think it's this big, within a matter of hours it seems to have grown to a 7-foot tall alien, and that's the only thing I sort of think, hang on, that was a bit of a super quick transformation.
We don't know the exact time, do we? We don't know how long it's taken them to do it. Over the generation of films, I don't think they've ever really carefully documented how long it takes them to become large.
True.
We see a few kind of weird mutated ones throughout some of the films, but
it's generally because I think when the aliens does that and it starts to use part of your DNA, the aliens look different, don't they? I mean, in Alien 3, I think it comes out of a dog or something. And it looks more like a four-legged sort of alien, doesn't it, rather than a big, tall, man-like alien. So I think there's a part of it and that's quite a cool little aspect of it, isn't it? That it takes a bit of your DNA to grow it and develop it.
There is one little clue that we kind of glossed over slightly.
Yeah.
And I only spotted it in my last viewing, and I've seen the film about 20 times. Yeah. As he's talking to Ripley and he turns the monitor off, as she walks off, them having had a little bit of an argument, he picks up a glass of milk and drinks it. Did you see that?
No.
Yeah. He picks up a glass of milk, and I think that was a straight reference to the fact he's got milk for blood,
Yeah.
And I think it's a nice little Easter egg.
Well, I don't think it's milk, but I think it's a
obviously,
some sort of strange fluid.
But it looks like he's drinking his own blood.
Oh, does he?
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant! I think
it is a brilliant little clip. You'll see him picks
that is good.
glass of downs it, and you think maybe he has to drink this stuff because it's kind of like lubrication for him. I don't know how these things work.
Well, we then sort of see, a number of crew members die now, don't they? Because the alien is lurking about. Brett, I think, gets killed, doesn't he? Because he's gone down to look for the cat or something. The cat.
Yeah.
They think they got the cat, don't they? Him, Ripley, and Parker. They think they got the cat. He's let it go. He says, it's just a cat, and he said, "Well, don't get it anyway, because then we know we're not gonna be chasing the cat around."
Yeah, it's a device, isn't it, to get him separated?
Yes, exactly. So he goes off into I always wondered why they got a cat on that spaceship anyway. That seems a bit weird.
Oh, I mean, to me, that makes perfect sense. I love cats.
Okay. Again, you see such good sets, such good, the way when he goes out there and there's that watery sort of stuff going. He's like, and it's so natural how it's so well
dark. And you see, for me at this point, this scene, because you get to see a bit more of the ship as he walks around here. I think that I wrote down a number of things because he picks up some skin. Doesn't he?
Yes, he
picks up a bit of skin, and then there's like clues as to his demise. And so he picks up the skin. There's a door, kind of open, and there's gas. And you look at his face; he's sweating, and the water comes down. It's all very visceral. And then we see the cat, and the cat hisses.
Yeah,
and it's like a sequence of things that lead to his demise. They're like one clue after another. You don't see the alien, and then suddenly the alien comes, and you kind of it's like
down behind
the mastery of the direction here is just one thing after another leads builds a suspense.
And the good thing is I don't think you really ever see the whole alien until right near the end. They keep it. You see that bit. You see the head, don't you? It's sort of down and it rises up. We don't see the whole of the alien, and again, just bits and pieces, and that really sort of adds to the suspense, doesn't it?
It does.
You realizing what it is, you're thinking, what is it? Is it big? Is it small? Is it got And that worked really well. And like you said,
and I think it's not just for us, the viewers. I think it's for Ripley as well, because Ripley does not see the alien right until the end. And so she doesn't know what it is. They don't know what it is. We're sharing. We're kind of relating to what those characters are feeling. And if you can do that, if you can make the viewer kind of not really understand what this is, and they don't, you're relating to those people that are in that world. It makes it more stronger and kind of very kind of visceral for yourself. And I keep using that word, but this film it's so rich, isn't it?
Parker's really upset. He wants to get out there and kill it. And they come up with a plan, don't they? That they will try and, because they've realised it must be going through all the air ducts in the ship, sort of these tunnels that they can
the vents, if you like.
So they decide they're gonna try and trap it and then blow it out into space. And this bit surprised me, that Dallas proposed that he would do it himself. I'm surprised he wasn't going to have someone else do it.
He doesn't seem to trust them, though. I think that's one of the things about Dallas. He doesn't trust the other people there. He's okay with Ripley, but I think,
although he finds she's a bit difficult at times, doesn't he?
He does. He seems a bit stubborn. But I don't think he trusts the lower decks guys. Definitely not,
because they are always just showing that they want the money side of things.
They're engineers, aren't they? They don't know how to run it. They don't know how to run it. They know how to fix it.
And
so he heads off into the tunnel.
Yeah, and this is again where they create a really good device for keeping the suspense going with this movement tracker. You see it in the second film. It's been picked up again by James Cameron really well in the second film. But this was a really good idea, having this tracker thing. And something I really noticed, that when they start to, you see the aliens coming, you can hear that with the music, but you can also hear a heartbeat sound in the background. And then when you've got this tracker noise as well going, it really builds it up, doesn't it? It really builds up the suspense, and you can.
And
feel
he's in that tunnle as well. It's a tight space.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
He crawls along, and there's this eye that opens.
It
kind of does this eye that opens the separating tunnels, and I just looked at it, I just thought that is just living itself. It's kind of like this organic form that opens out, and it doesn't close properly either. There's a little hole where it doesn't quite meet up, so it would never be designed like that. But because it's H.R. Geiger, you can see this goes beyond function. This is something that has meaning, and it's pretty damn creepy.
But you see his anxiety, don't you? When Dallas is in the tubes there, he's really like, oh well, I've got to get the fuck out. I've got to get out of here, and that's when it attacks and gets him, doesn't it? And that's always a good bit. You're running away, you come down, he turns around and there it is, just doesn't
How many times have you seen that in films now? I mean, that's a trope that's so recognizable. When you watch it in Alien, you think, oh, I've seen that before, but they designed it.
That's where it came from.
That darkness of it. There's always a turn and reveal, but that turn and reveal is very much about the alien suddenly showing itself and really kind of seeing its face properly for the first time.
He gets killed, taken off. There's actually, and I've not actually seen it, but there is actually a deleted scene where you see Ripley. I'm thinking of the director. See Ripley. She's in the ship late, and she sees. You know how they create that secretion, and they create like that Geiger sort of wall stuff. Okay. Supposedly, there's a thing where Dallas is there, and almost being like turned into an egg.
Right. Yes, No, I've seen like a little headline,
a deleted scene. Yeah. That'd be quite interesting. But anyway,
that's a nod to the next film, obviously.
Yeah. So they then get together. There's only 4 of them now.
Yeah. What are they going to do?
They can't. They decide. They can't use the escape pod because it can't take 4 people yet. And and that's when there's a lot of tension between them, isn't there? What are we going to do? And Ripley's saying, well, we do the same. We try and do the same thing again. We try and trap it, fire it into space, and see if we can get away with it. But she then has a bit of a confrontation with Ian Holm, doesn't she? And sort of says, I'm going to go and speak to Mother. So she goes, checks the computer. And the computer basically tells her, priority 1, that the alien is the most important thing. The crew is expendable. And that's where she loses her shit, isn't it? Because he comes in.
Well, she's reading it, and then there's a great shot. She's reading it, and it pans to her face, and she goes backwards, and then he's there Ash next to her, having seen that she's read it,
and giving the very eerie sort of, well, there's a simple explanation for this. And she's like, and she grabs hold of him, doesn't she? But that's when
grabs him. She's very physical with him.
That's when he loses his shit, doesn't he? He really sort of.
Well, he knows now that she's going to want to kill it, and she's going to blow the ship up. Whatever needs to be done. And so they go out of the little pod, the little womb, and she goes to leave, and he presses
closes
the
doors, doesn't he?
Stops her from leaving. And there's that blank look on his face.
And you could see that that little sweat of thing coming down, of milk or whatever it is, coming down his head. That bit, I think this is one of the scariest bits for me.
When he completely malfunctions.
The bit, so he attacks her, doesn't he? And he's having some weird sort of, he grabs a magazine or a newspaper or something and scrunches it up.
She's unconscious lying there, and he looks at her and her mouth is open. I think he kind of just thinks, I'll just shove this down her throat.
I wasn't sure whether he was having some sort of thing about, because the alien puts the thing down your throat, doesn't
could
it? And
be
lays
that.
an egg in the throat.
Yeah,
and I wondered,
absolutely.
could it be he's gone a bit crazy, he's malfunctioned, and he's thinking, right, yeah, that's,
And that is a good example of H.R. Geiger's art influencing the director's decisions. So it's coming down the different inspiration for that scene, as you say. It's the penetration.
But luckily Parker comes along and helps her, doesn't he? Bashes him on the head, his head comes off, but he hits him once, doesn't he? And then he starts the bit where he's rolling around the walls going
and
like,
that noise is terrifying.
Freaky as shit.
It's so good though how something like that, if you look at it now, kind of I can look at it now more dispassionately, and I kind of think, wow, they're using lots of milk, they're spinning him around. All he's doing is spinning. Yeah, he's starting to everywhere.
Then they whack his head off, don't they?
Yeah.
His head comes off, but that whole bit, he then grabs. He's got on top, and then
you think he's dead, but then he kind of lunges up again. Onto Parker.
Yeah,
and then Lambert goes into the cow prod.
That's right. Yeah, she gets him with that, and good bit. But the bit then when they've got his head on the table as well is really good. And where he talks to them and sort of says,
we get a little glimpse then, don't we, at his madness,
psyche. Yeah,
in that moment you realize he's in total adoration of the alien.
Yeah,
and that he's completely overwhelmed by its pureness. He calls it.
Exactly. It's got no conscience. It just simply exists, and that's how it is.
And Ian Holm,
very good.
I mean, he was covered in that shit, and then he's obviously underneath the table.
He's in the table, isn't he?
Yeah, with his this neck collar on, and he gives this deadpan. Sequence of lines, and you just look at it and you just think that is masterful.
Quality.
I mean, he was a great actor. I mean, he died fairly recently, didn't he? Unfortunately, but what a performance! What a great man.
And they decide, right, we're going to abandon ship, we're going to blow the ship up, and we're going to take the escape pod and take our chances. Of course, they've got to split up to go and do this, So when Lambert and Parker go down to get, I presume it was like air, was it oxygen tanks or something?
Propane or something like that. I don't know what it was.
Something, they were loading something up, weren't they? But I mean, she's totally, when the alien pops up, she's totally scared out of her wits, isn't she? And it's a slightly different alien, isn't it, than sometimes, because I suppose this is the original, but when you see the second film and the later films, they're a lot quicker, aren't they? And they'll attack really quick. This one has kind of taken pleasure out of her pissing her pants, isn't he? He sort of comes up on her, and old Parker's like, get out of the way, come on. And you can, Ripley's hearing it on the radio, and
it's all kicking off,
screams,
But in amongst all that terror, the alien, there's one shot which I watched back, and it's terrifying. The alien moves across the screen in slow motion.
His arms are kind of out.
It's a weird shot, but when you think about it, it just shows that this alien, it doesn't need to rush. It's so deadly, and and then it knows that the girl is just frozen with terror and she can't move. And the tail comes up
That's underneath
the legs.
I know.
Back, and you're like
going,
oh my god.
You're
just gonna eviscerate her, and it's
again,
just like
you don't see her dying. You don't see that sort of thing, do you? You
see the mouth come out and hit the face, don't you?
Of Parker. He kills Parker, but you hear all the Ripley is hearing all these screams and all this stuff going on. So she's now trying to run down there and help them. Seen the alien. And I thought, I'm going to turn it off. So she goes and tries to turn it off, but she's too late, to turn it off. So she's got to get to the escape pod before the whole ship explodes. And
we see her going through this tunnel, and she's got the gun, and she's got There's and at this moment, if you pause it and you look at the screen, you can see there's gas pouring out. There's the fire from the gun. There's the sweat on her face, which is plastered her. There's the flashing lights. Your senses are bombarded with all these different elements, and it kind of draws you in. It does. It's so atmospheric, and it's so kind of chemical. You know, you're in touch with the kind of elements of the world here, and they're all kind of bombarding you, and you kind of like, and it's gritty and really fantastic.
And you're really feeling her terror, aren't you? You're really feeling the pressure and what's happening, and you know, it's
and that's music as well in the background beating.
Absolutely, the heartbeat sort of side of it. You know, it's really brings it home. It's amazing. You know, and she obviously thinks, she gets onto the little spacecraft. She thinks she's evaded it somehow, and she's fired out, isn't she? And that could be the only bit where I think they could just touch up those special effects on how the ship blows up, because it's kind of a little of a funny bit of a, you know. I've seen something like that in Star Wars.
I think they do in the Disney, on the Disney Channel. They've got a much bigger kind of explosion. Right. Okay. That's the one I watched this morning, and it's kind of much more bigger and purpley. And kind of. Anyway.
But obviously she's thinking, oh, I've done it. She starts getting undressed, and she suddenly this arm goes, and she's at the panel, isn't she? The head is kind of, you know, it's clever how the head is kind of hidden in with all the other ducting, you know, and it suddenly is, you know, she's like,
it's grey, it's not a lot of light. The thing is, and she's stripped down to her underwear. She's very vulnerable in this position. You know, it's a classic ploy to take the clothes off somebody to make them feel more vulnerable. You know, classic sort of torture. And she's put herself in this position. She's thought she's safe, and now it's just her in her underwear with this alien in the room. My God! Of course, Ripley is fucking hardcore.
Yeah, she gets into one of the cupboards. She's got all the space suits and stuff in, isn't it? She managed to get in one of those, and she grabs like this grappling hook gun, and she has a plan. So she's, you know, comes out, puts the spacesuit on, sits down, starts to release all the pressure, doesn't she? And she I don't know what she's firing at, because she's trying to get him out, isn't she?
It's like a harpoon thing or something, isn't it?
No, so she's like activating all the vents or all the gases. Do you know what I mean? And to get the alien out,
to decompress the chamber.
Yeah, is it decompressing it? Is that what it is?
I think that's what happens. I think it's to decompress it. I don't think she.
I thought she was trying to pick the right blast to get him. Do you know what I mean? So it gets him out of the thing. So then,
maybe I didn't spot that, but I don't know. The way I read it was the chamber had to be decompressed, and all that kind of was bringing it out of the hiding place.
The thing is, if she decompressed it, then there wouldn't be any air in the thing to go out into space to take it out of the thing.
That is very true.
I think she was trying to hit it with a blast of air or something, so that it got it out of the side.
That makes good sense. I don't apologize.
Obviously, it gets out, and a brilliant bit is when she's like starts looking around, doesn't she? To sort of see, where is it? Can I blow it out now?
Well, it zooms in on her face. Like, there's a
oh shit.
Well, there's a pan, and it's subtle, but it's a slow zoom in on her face as she's in that dome of those beautiful helmets they wear. Yeah, and slowly gets closer and closer, and you get the tension coming as she does it, and then she turns.
Yeah, she's trying to look around because the side of the thing is, and she's and she presses the eject button. Yeah. And obviously she blasts it out into space. It grabs hold of the doors, doesn't it? And she then got the old grappling hook thing.
Yeah, that's right. That's what
shoots it out into space. Did you notice as she did that, and the door closes, the grappling gun flies and lands in the door. So there's one last possibility they can get back in. You know, it's always the way, isn't it? If you can sort of just, you know, you think you've won, then you haven't won. Oh no, you know. But it climbs up into one of the boosters, doesn't it? And she
very satisfying when it does that. It swings around, and you see it swings onto the booster. Yeah, and you think, oh boy, you're gonna get it.
and that's kind of it, isn't it? That's the end of the film. You don't sort of see her getting back.
She kind of signs off.
Just exactly that. And again, that's really nice, isn't it? It's nice. It's obviously given us a way into the next film. It's such a great film. It's so well made. The direction, like I said, the direction's really good, isn't it? All the actors are brilliant. I mean, you look at the people there; they all go off to do great things, don't they? And
they do,
and have got well-known, really respected actors. The music and things, sound effects, these, all the models of the ships and the aliens. Unbelievable. I mean, some of them were absolutely huge. The Nostromo actual model was huge, and I thought when I watched it, it looks so good. It really looks
the way
real.
It's shot. And the way it's lit,
so good.
It just works so effectively. When they're landing on the planet, it's backlit with no light on the front, and you can't see, but it just gives it so much scale. It was very effective, and because the whole film is dark, they could get away with having the dark lighting for the ships as well, and it works fantastically. I mean, it's interesting for me. This film wouldn't be made today, because this film is about artistry. It's about how all these different elements that are very kind of real and you can touch them come together to make this product. Whereas today we're much more concerned about CGI and green screening and all that sort of thing. And it's interesting because I sat down my teenagers to watch this because I wanted to give them, because I got 3 teenagers and sat them down and we watched it, and I said, this is an amazing film. And they watched it all, and all 3 of them said, didn't find it scary at all. And I think it's because there's a different language these days. And I think that when I first watched this film, there were some terrifying elements to it. But the kids these days, they're so desensitized because we have so much violence and stuff that it doesn't shock them as much.
Computer games,
computer games.
And what I think they don't realize is this was the beginning of that kind of stuff.
Of course.
You know what I mean? The things that are developed look back at Alien, and they then try to say, how can we be more violent or more gross than that? Do you know what I mean?
Well, they do, but they use different tools to emulate, and they don't seem to recognize the ingredients. I think if you take a film and you make it visceral. I mean, like The Thing. So we looked at The Thing, didn't we?
Yeah.
That was very visceral, and it's a classic, and people love that. And I will always take it back. And I know that this is one of your beliefs as well. If you have a physical prop, if you have something there, the actor just does so much better with it. They do. It's something about having it there that just makes you realize, you interact with it, you understand it, you want to be part of that, and the more CGI is used, occasionally it works, it works, but it certainly doesn't seem to last as long.
I think for me, the problem with CGI is it's too perfect, Even when they try and create something that looks dirty, it still looks too perfectly dirty. Whereas when it's handmade by a person, nothing is gonna be exactly spot on, and that's what your eye kind of picks up. This is made by a person, a thing. Those sets were all made and look amazing. When I watched it again today, and they were panning around and looking at all the sets, I was just blown away.
It is. It's got fantastic.
I know it's got the 70s style there, but it looked amazing, didn't it? And real. And I could imagine myself being there. A lot of the stuff these days is all just so futuristic. It's just unreal. It just doesn't seem real.
And there's a few exceptions, like The Expanse, for example. But I think
but they built sets. They built some good sets.
But they look at this as a work of art rather than a product.
And so bringing someone like this Geiger character in to do this.
H.R.
That's one of the reasons why it helps it. He takes it. It's his personal art.
And where do you watch a film? You meant to watch it at the cinema. These films, if you're in a massive black space, and it's huge in front of you, it's all the more impacting. The sounds are coming at you from all angles.
Yeah.
You know,
exactly.
They made these films to be seen at cinemas, whereas these days films are made to be seen at home to a large extent, to be streamed, or, you know, and I think when I just watched this film today, and I was, as you say, I was blown away as well. And I just thought, wow.
I hadn't seen it in quite a while. And seeing it again and seeing how good it is, you know, just made me think we've not got it right. We've not got it right anymore.
No, we haven't.
We're not doing the right things for films, you know.
Yeah, that's what I take out of it as well, you know.
Like we really enjoyed the Andor series. They did a lot of the sets and a lot of things there, you know, to make that work. Yeah. The stuff that didn't work quite as well was when it was too much CGI, you know. Yeah. But when it was on a set and when it was real, for me, that's the way they got to get back to that.
They've got to get back to it. And it's cheaper.
Great films. I don't understand how it can't be cheaper. When you see what they spend on these expensive.
Films. And you know, there's a saying I saw the other day that's sort of starting to go around. Marvel director. That person's a Marvel director. And basically what it means is someone who isn't an artist. It's just someone there who's just there to make a product that they can stream. You know, and they don't have an eye on the art. They're more concerned about satisfying ticking too many boxes, you know, and that does play a big part in how there's a degradation of film these days, where it's not an art anymore. And I bloody hell do I sound old saying that.
No, I know what you mean, but I think if you look at some of these films look, this was made in 79, for God's sake. You know, we're talking 30, 40 years ago. You know, it's ridiculous that we still look at it now and we think, my God, that's brilliant, you know. And I won't be looking at Avatar 2 in 30, 40 years time thinking, oh, that was great. Oh, that's a brilliant thing. That's maybe not the best example, but some of the films that we see, you know, each year, they're losing it, aren't they? They're losing that, you know, and for me, I just want to see them go back to that, because then I'd like to go into that industry as a prop maker and do it for them. So, you know.
Well, I think there's Andor's definitely prompted a bit of a response in that area, hasn't it? I mean,
I hope so. It probably didn't get as much recognition as it should have done, because there were other things around it at the time that were. But yeah, I think this is a big one for me. You know, we've got to get back to that. Then we'll have some more classic films to think about in 40 years' time.
Yeah, definitely.
Anyway, it was brilliant to see it again. And if you haven't seen Alien, go back and see it. It is one of the first great, you know, sci-fi films. You know, follows them from Star Wars, following that trend of dirty future. You know, and
you got Close Encounters, E.T. that sort of come after. I know E.T. is a sort of different beast, but it's still about one alien and how that alien kind of interacts with a group. You know, so you know, that is a golden era of sci-fi. You know, and that period, late 70s into the kind of into the early 80s. You know, some great films around about that.
Yeah, definitely. Anyway, thanks for watching with us today. We've really enjoyed talking about. I always love talking about these old films. It's great fun. We're gonna do a few more. I think we may even do Aliens. Maybe we follow up with an Aliens for review. You know, I bloody love that film as well. For different reasons.
Very different film, but brilliant.
But brilliant. But anyway, thanks again for watching. If you'd like to subscribe, that would be brilliant. Or like or comment on our videos. I'm sure there's lots we've missed out on that film. Let us know what you think. Anyway, thanks very much and see you again soon.